Welcome to another episode of Does It APU? I couldn't resist myself after we finished all of our tests with Resident Evil 7. I wanted to see, could we play Resident Evil 7 on just an A10 APU? Now we'll be using our typical setup. We've gone back to our A10 7890K, 16 gigs of DDR3 2133 RAM, and the iGPU is the 512 stream processor variant with 2 gigabytes dedicated to the iGPU. So let's get away from this setup and let's get over there on the test bench and see how it performs. All right, so here we are at the front screen for Resident Evil 7. First thing we want to do is we want to go in and see where the game preset us to. So obviously it's blurry, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that we are, based on the size of the fraps counter, we're definitely at 1080p, but yeah, that's what I thought. See, it did have VSync on. I went ahead and turned it off, but it's got interlaced on. I want to do this without messing with interlacing, so we're going to go to normal and see how much clearer that is. And resolution scaling is at 0.8. I want to set it to 0.1. I want true resolution. Don't want to use any of the scaling. We'll go back once we're in the game and see what kind of a difference that makes, but texture quality is at low, texture filtering at medium, mesh at low. It's got FXAA and TAA. We're going to go ahead and just turn that off. I mean, this isn't, well, I guess we can't. We're just going to turn it down to FXAA. Motion blur is off. Rendering is low. Depth of field is on. Shadow quality is low. Dynamic shadows is on, which helps. We're going to turn off shadow cache, because we found that with less than 4 gigs that causes problems, especially on Radeon cards. I'm going to turn that off. Ambient occlusion is at SSAO. We're going to go ahead and turn that off. Leave bloom on, lens flare, leave the reflections, subsurface scattering off, chromatic aberration, we'll leave that on. Alright, we'll just stick with those settings, and we'll see how this does in-game. In the menus we're only getting 20 some odd FPS here, which is not very encouraging. Alright, so here we are in the game. We are in the, 30 there, but we're going to be low mid-20s. I can almost guarantee you that standing here we'll be able to see good effects of the different settings. So let's go ahead and start. So we're at 1080p. Let's see what happens when we go to rendering mode is normal. So here we go. FXAA. Leave that at FXAA. Why is shadow cache on? There we go. Turn it off. That didn't seem to help much. Let's see. Let's try this again. Let's go in here. Shadow cache is off. Ambient occlusion is off. Let's see. Alright, so 1080p. Most things are low off. For some reason, anti-aliasing FXAA. That's what it was at first. Let's see if that helps anything with the graphic or the frame rate. And that actually made it worse, so we know we can go in and make that a little higher. Let's see, let's go back to FXAA only. Let's see, before we drop the resolution, let's see what happens when we go to interlace. Oh, interlaced. Of course, I can tell that it's interlaced, but we did jump well over the 30 FPS mark. Let's go ahead and stand right here. Let's see what happens if we drop the resolution. Let's see. I know how people feel about 900p, but we're going to go ahead and try it out here. Just see what happens. We're going to turn off interlaced. And 900p got us about, or 1600 by 900 gets us about where 1080 with, yeah, okay. So with interlaced 1080, let's see. Let's drop it down to 720 and see what happens. Now I know this isn't ideal and I'm not a big fan of 720p, but with an iGPU only, let's see. Oh, well. Actually quite smooth. And of all the games that we've tried, I would actually call this one of the more playable ones. Let's see what happens when we add in display mode. Let's see what happens when we go into interlaced. Well, 720p with interlaced gets us over that magical 60 FPS mark. But actually doesn't look terrible. I guess because the way this particular game works and the way it is, it's more heavily rendered on the lighting than necessarily the polygons. It's not the greatest, but you know what? If I had an APU, if this was all I had, or even something lower end, I really wouldn't be bothered by this. Let's see if I can restore our, oh, here we go, default. Let's go back to default and let's see what performance it gave you right out of the box. Okay, so you know what? I don't know what settings these are right off the hand, but it actually looked better at 720p. It's quite fuzzy like this. This is extremely fuzzy. Sure, it's a lot of smoothing going on, but it's very much fuzzy. Let's take a look at it. Alright, graphics. So we got 1920 by 1080, full screen, variable refresh rate, VSync is on, rendering method is interlaced. There's our key. Resolution scaling is at 0.8. That's not something I'm a big fan of. Medium on the texture filtering, FXAA plus TAA, that's why it's so soft looking. Motion blur is off, depth of field, okay. Alright guys, so, well, there you have it. Resident Evil 7 running right now in the 40s on just an APU, but you saw it 720p with the resolution scaling to 1, and with the interlaced rendering, you're going to break 60 FPS on this game, which is quite impressive for just an APU. Alright guys, it's been Keith with WCC Update, and we'll catch you all on the next one.